So, by the time I was 15, I think I really just hated God. I think that, so when I was 7, my dad passed away, so he had a heart attack. And kind of as a family, it was just me, my mum and my sister and my brother. We kind of just left in the lurch. Our dad was the one who worked, so we didn't have any money, and life just became really hard really fast. And I went to every minister I knew. I went to my grandma, who's like the devout Christian in my family, and I asked them, why would God do this? And the only answer I ever got was God works in mysterious ways. And as a 6.5, 7-year-old, that's not really a very good answer to receive. You can't really understand it that well. It's not something you have any knowledge of, and yeah, from that point onwards, I just decided that I didn't want to follow a God who would take someone's family away. I was very vocal in my beliefs that God wasn't real, or if he was an evil God. So by this point, I'd got a relatively good group of friends at school, and they invited me along to this group that was every Tuesday. So I decided to go along, and they told me at the beginning that this group was run by Christians, but was kind of designed to be a social group. So
John, how long have you been coming to Costa?
Since September, so about 5-6 months now.
And what keeps you coming back?
All my friends come here, and I like the environment, and most of the adults are actually really cool. So
I made a fair few friends pretty quickly there, and with some of them, so some like the young leaders, I decided to kind of debate faith, and it was done in a relatively non-aggressive sense. Like, we would just kind of talk about it, and obviously they would have their opinion and I'd have mine.
So, how has this club to help you think differently about God, if so?
Well, it's shown me that just because you believe in God doesn't mean you can use it like as an excuse. I mean, everyone here actually does thoroughly believe in God, and they act like they do, which according to some Christians I've met, they don't, and that really kind of put me off the faith. I mean, I lost it when I was younger, my dad passed away, and I've had bad things happen, so that's why I don't believe, but I can see why other people do. So and that kind of, it shows that, to me, there are actually people who actually do believe in their faith.
And obviously they would have their opinion and I'd have mine, and kind of we'd both, I think at the end of the night, we'd both leave feeling relatively content about the way that we'd spoken about God. As I continued to go to this Tuesday group, internally at least, I started to realise that they had answers to questions I didn't have answers to, and that intrigued me. And so they invited me to their Thursday group, which was definitely about God.
So John, you've actually started coming to something else the last couple of weeks. Would you like to
yeah, I've been going to the Thursday moto sessions. I want to go.
The gospel community.
Yeah, they're quite interesting, especially as I'm a self-professed atheist. I find it interesting to try and hear others' opinions as to why they believe what they do.
So can you tell us a bit about what you've learned in the last couple of weeks?
But I think in reality, I was trying to kind of scope out what God was like to these people, because if they had a better idea as to what God was about than the people who I knew when I was younger, or had a better explanation than from when I was younger, maybe God wasn't so bad after all. So after a long time of building a wall between me and God, so I didn't want to see him, I didn't want to know him, kind of as I started to discuss him again as a pretty painful topic with these mature adult Christians in my life, God started to brick by brick break down that wall. And when I actually finally caught a good glimpse of him, I saw that he was a lot better than I had ever imagined. He was good, he was kind, he was loving. He wasn't at all this cruel, vindictive being I made him out to be in my head. And at that moment was when I started to help pull down the wall myself. So I started to actually make little steps out in faith. Yeah, I was trying to actually get to know him more as well. And I think at this point, that would be the moment when I would say I became a Christian. I don't know. So at this point, I kind of finally began to surrender to God. And it definitely had its challenges, as one of the things I had to surrender was my first major relationship. So it was pretty toxic for a multitude of reasons, and and it didn't end well. In fact, it made me have to reset the year at school. That's a different story. Yeah, it was really hard, and I think since then I've definitely had to grow a lot in this my self-confidence and in my ability to live a life without having to have a relationship and without having to have other people's respect, because I have his, and his means a lot more to me than other people's. Since coming to know Christ, I think that God's definitely kind of built upon some giftings in me. I think that, yeah, God's definitely given me some very solid pastoral gifts, and I'm very excited to get to continue to use those to build His kingdom, because I think that, yeah, I think within the roles that I would like to fill within a church or within a community, they're the gifts that I need to be able to do that. So I'm just very thankful for those.